Hi, and welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. If you're watching the Japanese economy, one of the foundations is the workforce. People going through Japanese education program en rote, learning by rote, being prepared for a career in large Japanese companies, small Japanese companies, working their tails off and dedicating themselves to the company. Flextime is an issue that's come up. Michael, Flextime, how successful is that possibly going to be?
It's a real question because we've had social transformation. We have increasing numbers of women in the workforce, and one of the great prides of this current administration is how many women have been incepted into the workforce. The Abe administration likes to say, we have 1.2 million new jobs, 1 million of them went to women. That's a sales point. When women enter the workforce, however, you have to start dealing with issues of childcare and elder care in a way that is much more serious. In addition, we've got demographic transition, where we're going from a youth society to an extremely aged society. So that persons who were in their 40s and 50s, who were previously thinking, how hard can I work in order to pay for my kids' education, now have to think, how many hours do I have to be with grandpa or with mom because she's suffering from Alzheimer's and she needs to be taken care of, and I have to find the way to get her to her doctor's appointment. That has happened in a big way, and it's going to be getting worse and worse and worse. This new definition of middle age, in addition to women moving into the workforce, is going to be pushing the flex time idea in a way that previously hasn't been inconceivable.
I like how you led off with social transformation. This is actually what we're seeing right before our very eyes. The demographics are going down. People aren't having children. Women are trying to get into the workforce. The men are retiring at 60, 62, maybe 63. They're staying healthier, but also their parents now are at an age where they require constant care, and the facilities just don't exist.
Well, the facilities, the government has committed itself to building X 100,000 more spaces at elder care facilities by X date. It's all very ambitious and probably not, they will not make any of their deadlines or any of their goals. And we don't really know how many people are leaving the workforce in terms of elder care. We have a pretty good idea in terms of child care, and the government of Japan has been working assiduously on that problem for over 20 years. I've been here 20 years, you've been here for longer. When we first came here, the situation for working women was abysmal. They have built tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of child care facilities. The transition, though, is requiring that it goes to elder care, and the last year for which they have figures is 2012, and at that year, about 100,000 persons said, I had to leave my place of work in order to take care of a parent or this parent of my spouse. And that was, I do not have the ability to participate in the workforce. That number has probably grown, and we know, since the baby boomers, the first of the baby boomers just turned 70, that the next 20 years are going to be
huge balloon there, isn't there?
Are going to be absolutely hell, and 100,000 people leaving the workforce will seem like heaven.
Okay, the Prime Minister has actually identified that in one of the three arrows. I want to create a dynamically engaged workforce so that the people can participate in the economy, they can participate in society, but they can also take care of their familiar needs. The fact of taking care of their parents is part of the responsibility of usually the elder son to take care of the parents, and these fellows are already gainfully employed. They're giving up the job, just like you said, because they've got to take care of mom or dad.
Well, the thing is, we have fewer people who are married, so we have persons who are in a situation where there's no spouse to hand this off to. Both male and female. You said eldest sons, eldest daughters are also on the hook for this. That you have also families have been having fewer children, so that the need to take care of the parents is actually concentrated on a smaller number of individuals. These social transformations of course the government has had 30 years to prepare for them. And they've been able to look at the population projections and then saying, this is the crisis that's coming. They kept deferring. We had the years of stagnation after the bubble collapsed. And this government is only now coming up with things that would seem obvious, but such as flex time,
right.
Such as saying you can do your work at home for a certain number of hours in order so that you can do something else simultaneously. This is a revolution, and it's ongoing. One hopes, one expects that major Japanese corporations will jump on the bandwagon. The government is trying to lead by example.
Right.
It's saying, we're going to implement these new time schedules for bureaucrats. Now, that's kind of tricky because the taxpayers will look at this and say, I'm paying my taxes so that I know when I go to the government office,
somebody's there.
There's going to be someone there.
Right.
You're telling me that person's not going to be there and that I have to change my life in order to accommodate their personal needs when I'm paying their salaries? That's going to be kind of a tricky negotiating process that we haven't really, I don't think anyone's really thought through yet. But in terms of private corporations, the corporations that show the greatest flexibility are going to be able to attract the best people, in theory. And at that point, it's going to be, with fewer and fewer young people, it's going to be a market where the labor force has some say.
Right. Well, the cool thing about this, though, is that one would have thought, I mean, if you've been here for a long time, that these kinds of ideas, these concepts, they're really a hard sell here in Japan. It moves so glacially, and people really just don't accept new ideas and change to the situation as easily as, for example, in the United States or in pockets of Europe. But this one is going forward. April 1st, they will implement flex time through various bureaucracies, and they will be, it's really an experiment. They're going to try it out and see how it goes and use tools for having people work at home, maybe through video conferencing or just through the email or whatever, but still trying to get the job done, staying at the office 4 days a week and 1 day a week maybe at home.
Yeah, there are a lot of local governments have been the experimenters in this because they've been hit the hardest. And they've been hit first because they have to deal with local issues and they have to deal with a rather limited workforce. The national government recruits nationally. It can get go-getters. It can get the cream of the crop, people who are willing to sacrifice. But it has to lead by example now. It has to cut back. I mean, the finance ministry is famous, for example, for when the finance ministry babies are born, because you know that there will not be any conceived from the month of December to the month of February when the budget is being done, because they work until 3 o'clock in the morning every night,
right.
And they take a taxi home at 3 a.m., take a shower, and then go back to the office. That is going out the door. That is not going to be happening anymore. What we're going to see is a much more humane workforce, most likely workplace, we hope. But the other social change is that when you're at the workplace, you're going to have to be working. And that's something that you and I know a lot about. A lot of
Time spent
is either doing nothing or socializing. That will also have to be a change. And you have to think that this social change, I hate to be a downer about this, is because men in their 40s and 50s and in their 60s are suddenly realizing there is more to life than the office.
Right.
And it's because it's their parents that are still alive in their 80s and 90s. And they have to, instead of having just a life where they can command their underlings to do all these things, they have to integrate into their own lives these familial issues that they never had to think of in the past.
This is a huge issue because apparently there are alternatives to flex time. And you've got to imagine that bosses and senior bureaucrats don't like the idea of flex time. I want my resources here where I can shout at them, right, and get work done. But the idea that flex time is something to be considered means that the other alternatives were considered and cast away.
There are all kinds of things that you could possibly do. Possibly there's a way of doing it technologically, but here we're talking
Or
about
through immigration.
or
A
immigration.
lot of different.
There's all kinds of different ways you try to deal with the labor force and that you have, and the social media and the social milieu that you have. Since immigration is not a part of it, the transformation of work is the only way that's forward.
Please continue to join us as we explore and examine how Japan's society is changing on a daily basis and how these structural changes are dictated by what's going on in Japanese politics.